want to talk about read-alouds. Hi there, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I am Aileen. I run this YouTube channel, Life is Aileen. I also have a food blog. I homeschool my 4 children, and I love sharing about the process with all of you. So today I want to talk about read-alouds. I'm going to tell you all of the books that we plan to read for this school year, the 2023-2024 school year, which for us is roughly August through the end of May. And I actually have 2 separate book lists that I'm pulling from. So I'm going to talk about each of those, and the books that we've already read, I will share my thoughts on those books as well, so you can decide if you want to read them with your kiddos. So let's get started. Okay, as you can see, I have quite a stack of books here. And just to give you an idea of my kiddos' ages, just as far as, because I do feel like that's relevant. So my oldest is 11, he's in 6th grade. So that's kind of like in some places he's considered middle school, some places he's considered elementary school. That changes from town to town where I live. So 6th grade, I'm still kind of considering that elementary school. I have a 4th grade daughter, a 1st grade daughter, and then a 3-year-old preschooler who's just along for the ride and plays and listens sometimes if she feels like it. In some of my other videos, I have mentioned that for this year, we're using a literature study by Blossom and Root instead of assigning individual readers to my kids. I'm letting them just read. I do require that they read at some point. My son reads at bedtime every single night. I just want them to read, and I don't want to suck the love of reading away from them. So we are doing just read-alouds. The books I want them to hear or read, I'm reading to them, or we're using audiobooks. So the first stack of books I'm going to go through with you is from Blossom and Root. Here is my Blossom and Root book stack. This is not the entire book list for the year. I did have to cut out some just because we're pulling from 2 different book lists, which I'll get into in a minute. I just only have so much time. And I also really would like to add in a Christmas read aloud for the month of December. We did that last year. We read the Christmasaurus, and it was just so fun. And I just really enjoyed digging into the holidays in December. And so I plan to do that again. So if you have a Christmas read aloud that's good for elementary, multi-age kids, please let me know, because I definitely need some suggestions on that front. But here's what we are planning to read from Blossom and Root. So first up is Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of Nim. This is the first book that we read this school year. We have already finished it. My son had already read it a couple of years ago, and he really enjoyed hearing it again. I don't know that I ever read this book growing up, but it was lovely. It was so fun. It was full of adventure and intrigue, and there was just so many like mysterious things happening that just left you wondering what was going to happen next. It does touch on animal testing, which was a really interesting concept to discuss with my kiddos. And so I do recommend this book. I loved this book, and I'll probably read it again to my preschooler when she gets older. We do love a good book and movie pairing. And I was wondering why the woman who does Blossom and Root, why she hadn't suggested this movie, because she has like a whole list of movies that she suggests you watch throughout the year, because the theme for this year's literature selections are a hero's journey. So she has this whole list of movies for a hero's journey, but the Rats of Nim movie was not on there. And that's because it's horrible. Me and my kids were watching it, and just the whole time they were like, what is this? What is going on? It was so strange. It did not follow the storyline. There were a lot of things happening that weren't being explained. There was a lot of like magical, mystical stuff happening in the movie, and there was none of that in this book. And the rats were like really creepy and scary, whereas in the book, they actually are friends and they're nice. So enter the book in a movie as, you've been warned. I thought it was funny because now we can reference how horrible the movie was. And normally we love a good book in a movie, but the book was A+. I loved it. So that was our first one that we're reading right now is Echo Mountain. And this is historical fiction. If you want to introduce historical fiction to your kiddos, this is a great one to do that. It's about this girl. She lives in Maine. It's during the Great Depression. And essentially her family loses everything and has to move into the mountains of Maine, onto Echo Mountain. And it's all about their survival and how she's learning about like living in the woods and living off the land. And there's like learning about herbs, and we're really enjoying it. It's a really great storyline. We're about 2/3 of the way through, and we're supposed to be done with it by now, but I've been just kind of stretching it out and not reading as much as is assigned each week because it's been such a good book and I just don't want it to be over. So Echo Mountain, also recommend. Now, the rest of these books from Blossom and Root, I have not read yet, so I'm not going to dig in as deep because I don't have personal experience. I've had really good success with her book lists. So I'm just trusting the process. Like I said, I did pull out a few of the books on her list because I didn't think we were going to get to them, mainly the mythology. We tried to read the Greek mythology and my kids were just not feeling it. Two of my kids really enjoy Greeking Out, the podcast. So they're getting their mythology in that form. So we cut out, there's 3 different mythology books that I cut out. And I'm not 100% positive we'll get to all of these books, but I'm going to try. So the next one is Finding Langston. I've heard really, really great things about this book. It's very short. I know we'll get to this one. So this one is next after Echo Mountain, although I will probably read a Christmas book after Echo Mountain. So again, if you have suggestions, leave a comment because I need a good Christmas book. So here's this one, Finding Langston by Lisa Klein Ransom. The next one is Tristan Strong Punches a Hole in the Sky. This book is hefty. It is a trilogy, I believe. I've heard really good things, and I've heard really good things about the audiobook. So I already know that we're going to use this one as an audiobook. But we plan on reading this one, and the author is Kwame Mbalia. Next is They Call Me Guero. This one is actually written in poem format, so you can see in here. So I may even try and double up and do this as poetry and then read another book at the same time. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy to think that because I have not read this book, but we will probably get this one too. This is by David Bowles, Border Kids Poems. Next one, I'm so excited for this one, A Wrinkle in Time. I did read this growing up. Well, in 3rd grade, my 3rd grade teacher read it to me. And honestly, I felt I enjoyed it, but I was also really confused at the time. So I'm hoping my kids will understand it a little bit more than I did because they're so used to us doing so many read-alouds. But my 1st grader may or may not get it. They've already watched the movie many times. So we'll definitely be doing book and a movie and comparing and contrasting that. But I'm really, really excited to read this. And if my kiddos want, you can see there's other books that go with it that I've never read. So we may dig into those as well if they want. But Wrinkle in Time, excited for this one. And the last book from our Blossom and Root book list that we plan to read this year is A Wish in the Dark. And again, I've heard really good things about this book. I really hope we get to it. If not, maybe over the summer. We do read-alouds over the summer as well. This is by Christina Soontornvat. And I feel like I butchered that. So Christina, I'm really sorry if I pronounced your name incorrectly, but this is the last book on that book list. So those are the books that we are doing for our lit studies this year. However, my kids are also in a book club, and their book club is run that we have a whole list of books that we read. We have assigned readings for each week. They meet once a week, and then they have to write questions about what we read in the book and try and stump each other. There's like 25 to 30 kids in the group. And so we meet and they have their little notebooks and they ask questions and then they try and answer. And then once we're done reading all of the books, they break up into little small groups. So last year, I think there were like 5 kids in our group, and they create their own group poster, and every kid gets assigned 1 or 2 books to reread from the list, and they become the book experts. And then book club ends in springtime with the battle of the books. And the leader of the group, she goes through and asks questions and they have to write their answers on a whiteboard and, you know, whisper to each other. It's so much fun. It's like a game show. It's so much fun. And then they like get an award at the end. So it was really fun last year. I know my kids are looking forward to it this year. We're on our fourth book already, and we started in August. So we're really banging through them. They're pretty short books. There's not really any big thick books like with Blossom and Root. So they're a little bit easier reads because it is geared towards, it's supposed to be like 1st to 8th grade. So it's a big group of age ranges. So first up, My Father's Dragon, which coincidentally, I bought this book over the summer to read to my 1st grader because it was the first chapter book I ever read to my oldest before we were even homeschooling. And I bought this at the bookstore intending on reading it to her. And then it was on the book list and I just was so excited. So My Father's Dragon, this is a trilogy. It's by Ruth Stiles Gannett. And I did read all 3 to my son years ago. And then I did read this to them, but then I also was able to get the trilogy on audiobook through my library. So my 1st grader has been listening to them at night as well. So this book is super fun. It's a very easy read. So if you have like a younger, like a 4 or 5-year-old that you really want to start read-alouds with, this book is really good to start with. It's got some pictures. The chapters are short. It's really fun and adventurous. Next up is The Chocolate Touch. This is by Margot Apple, and it's kind of follows the story like King Midas, everything he touched turns to gold, but this is everything he touches turns to chocolate. So it's about this boy. He really, really loves sweet treats, loves chocolate, but it can get a little tiring after every single meal you eat turns to chocolate, and then some other things start turning to chocolate as well. So this is a really fun, quick and easy read. So we've already read this one as well. The next book is Socks by Beverly Cleary. I read a lot of her books growing up, but I never read this book, and we did it in an audiobook. It was really such a fun story. I have one kid that is cat obsessed, so this was especially fun. If you've never read this book, it's all about from the perspective of the cat. His name is Socks, from when he's first being adopted as a kitten and all the way through. The family brings a baby home and how that changes his life. So it's definitely a fun read, especially if you like Beverly Cleary. The book we're reading right now is The Family Under the Bridge. This deals with, I guess maybe it's considered a historical fiction. I don't know. Well, anyway, it's about this man who is unhoused, living in Paris, and he goes to set up his winter home under a bridge, and he discovers 3 children there, and they are living there with their mother. Their father passed away. It doesn't really touch on that, so it's not super sad, but it's just about opening his heart to these children and, you know, experiencing what it's like to have less. So I'm really looking forward to reading through this book with my kids. We're only on chapter 2. My son did read it a couple of years ago, so he's familiar with the story, but that's this book. Oh, and the author is Natalie Savage Carlson. The next book is nonfiction, What's the Big Idea, Ben Franklin by Jean Fritz, illustrated by Margot Tomes. I enjoy reading nonfiction to my children. We've never read this, but I'm sure we'll enjoy it. I do like that it has pictures. See if I can show you some. They're just black and white, but they're pretty good illustrations, so that always helps keep them interested. So we'll be reading that one. The next one is Harry and the Poisonous Centipede. I've definitely never read this. Last year we read How to Eat Fried Worms, and one of my kiddos really, really resisted that book, but my son loved it, and I have a feeling that's how it's going to be this time, is one's going to be like, ew, that's gross, and my son's going to be like, yeah, let's keep reading it. So I'll let you guys know how it goes. And the last book is Alvin Ho, and I've never read this one either. It's by Lenore Look. That's it. Hopefully, fingers crossed, I can get through all these books. I know we'll get through the book list, the book club books, because we kind of have to, or my kids will give me a hard time. But I'm hoping to get through all of these as well, and also a Christmas book. If you have any comments about these books, movie pairing suggestions, or a Christmas book suggestion, please let me know in the comments below. And if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and hit that bell so you can always be notified of my new videos. Bye.